Hi, welcome. This is Stacy Lindsay. I am the CEO and a founding member of the Cholangiocarcinoma Foundation. We welcome you to the webinar today. Thank you for being here with us. We're excited about this webinar. I'm going to start by sharing a few things with you. You can go to the next slide. What we're going to be talking about today is our involvement with our industry and biotech partners. You have probably seen on many occasions, we have an industry council that we have been very excited about. It's a group of our pharmaceutical partners who have really supported us. They support our conference. They have supported fundraising. They have supported the patient registry. They have supported all kinds of international and national meetings, all kinds of different patient educational programs that we have done. And we wanted to talk today just a little bit about why we partner with our pharmaceutical partners. So you can go to the next slide. So CCF has 4 core values: patients first, collaboration, innovation, and urgency. You can go to the next slide. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about collaboration and what that means for CCF. You can go to the next slide. We know that collaboration yields results. And at CCF, we're partnering with every stakeholder in this space. The regulatory bodies, the research and scientists, the insurers, peers, which would be the patients and caregivers, specialists, providers, and today we're going to just talk about industry. It takes all of us to move things forward, but today we're going to be focusing on how we're moving forward with our industry partners. You can go to the next slide. So there was a study done early on, last year, I believe it came out, or the year before. It's about 4,000 patients who did a patient survey, and they talked about patient organizations playing the unique role of aggregating information, people, and treatments. You can go to the next slide. And this is we have found this to be true, that we bring all of the stakeholders together. And as we talk about our partnership with industry, I wanted to let you know why these partnerships are good for patients. Oftentimes we have the patients working together. They're working together on social media. They're working together in meetings. They're working together with different research bodies and different kinds of things. We have industry collaborations, our industry council, working on unique clinical trials, working on all kinds of different things. The regulators and policy makers, when we add them in to help the pharmaceutical partners move forward with their drugs of interest, and then advocacy, bringing all of those parts together, that equals progress. You can go to the next slide. So what kind of progress you might be thinking about would be, if you think at we started working with industry, really started focusing and strategizing, how could we really help the patients? And we knew that one of the ways that we could help the patients is we could help lower the barrier for pharmaceutical companies to bring their drugs in and start working toward treatment solutions for these patients. And that's what we wanted to do. If you look at the difference between what was happening, we got our standard of care in 2010. If you look at the last 5 or 6 years, what has happened in this space compared to the 10 years before, I think you can see that it has really accelerated progress in getting new treatment, innovative options available to the patients. And that's been one of our goals. I'm going to turn it over to Melinda from here, and she's going to share with you some of the things that we do, that she's doing with advocacy with our partners in our pharmaceutical area.
Thank you, Stacy. I'm Melinda Bikini, Director of Advocacy with the Cholangiocarcinoma Foundation, and I get the privilege of working closely with all of our patient-centered partners in industry, and I'm happy to do so. So some of the things, having patient-centered partnership means that as patients and caregivers, we get to have the support from industry in the development of patient and caregiver resources and programs. For example, our NewlyDiagnosed Program, the nutrition resource, the care kits, research advocacy trainings and programs, Team CCF, the Journey of Hope, the regional symposiums, and of course the annual conference. And by partnering with industry, we also have the opportunity to have a voice as patients and caregivers in drug and device development. We can do this by participating in patient advisory boards, reviewing materials from consent forms to protocol design, to participating in the FDA as a patient advocate and weighing in on the drug approval process. Next slide, please. Having patient-centered partnerships also gives us opportunity to promote development of products that meet patients' needs. We give feedback on packaging, advertising, and one example I can think of is we made a suggestion on how the drug was packaged in those hard bubble packages, and it was really difficult for patients to get the pills out when they have neuropathy and pain in their hands. And our partners listened to our suggestions and took action on this feedback. And so it was really important to give that feedback, and it made a difference for the patients. We as patients also help to accelerate new therapies for all cholangiocarcinoma patients by participating in clinical trials, but also by participating in patient advisory boards or councils and giving our experiences of living with this disease. Our industry partners listen to our experiences and feedback and implement changes to the best of their ability based on what they learn from us. Next slide, please. I also want to emphasize what our patient-centered partners don't get to do. They don't determine the content or delivery of any of our CCF programs or events. They help to financially support these programs so we can provide them to our cholangiocarcinoma community, but CCF drives the content and the delivery. And we at CCF do not promote any specific trial, drug, device, or test over others. We are an equal opportunity partner, and one of our valued patient-centered partnerships are treated on an equal basis and show no favoritism. With that being said, it is very easy for me to say and execute this because we want what is best for patients, period. And that means giving the patients the information that comes from every single partner we have. And I think I'm going to turn it over to Isabel.
Hi, my name is Isabel. I'm the Director of Industry Engagement for the Foundation. And before we move on to hear from some of our specific individual partners today, I just wanted to highlight a few of the things that our partners do. And all the partners that we are talking with today have contributed to these terrific patient-centered programs that we're doing. So the Biomarkers Matter programs, the videos, the education. We have the 100 Questions and Answers book that a lot of our patients really like to use. The Journey of Hope, the Light It Green program for Global Cholangiocarcinoma Day, our patient registry where we're collecting information so that we can develop better treatments. As Melinda mentioned, our NewlyDiagnosed page and resources, which we're updating right now, our nutrition resource, our conference, our events. So all of these partners contribute in huge ways to the work that the foundation does. And then today, I want to hand this over to some of our individual partners to talk about specific individual collaborations that we've done together. So all of these partners have collaborated with us over the years on a number of partnerships. But each one of them today is just going to talk about really one specific thing that we've done together and why we got together to do that partnership, and then how it serves our patient community. So we're really excited to introduce you to these partners today. And we're going to go ahead and start with Taiho. Kim, do you want to introduce yourself?
Great, my pleasure. Hello, everyone. My name is Kim Hart. I'm the Director of Patient Alliances and Public Relations at Taiho Oncology. And it's my pleasure to be with you this afternoon and share a brief intro and a little background on Taiho, as well as our Taiho Cholangiocarcinoma Foundation Patient Advisory Council. Next slide, please. So by way of background of myself, I'm actually a microbiologist and been in the pharmaceutical industry for 30 plus years. And I started out in the laboratory and then went into clinical research. And most of my career in the pharmaceutical industry has actually been in the clinical area. So from clinical, I went into medical education and publication, and then to my joy, have been able to get into patient advocacy about the last 10 years. And so I'm responsible for our patient alliances as patient advocacy and work with the Cholangiocarcinoma Foundation. So I joined Taiho Oncology 4 years ago, and we are a subsidiary of Taiho Pharmaceutical Company based out of Tokyo, Japan. So our office is located in Princeton, New Jersey, and we're pretty small. Not a lot of folks, know us as far as a big pharmaceutical company. We have about 250 employees, so we're still small but growing. And I wanted to share with you our company logo. And the reason being is that, being a Japanese company, that our logo really is hopefully indicative of our culture. And as you can see, that our logo has a hand-drawn T, and that of course stands for Taiho, and it is expressing the power of nature and being also synonymous with trust. And the reason that it's in brown is that it's an ecological color and representing human beings and on our earth. And then above that, the red portrays our company's energy, vitality, and liveliness. And as I mentioned, we're fairly new, so the yellow conveys that we're a newer company. And I'd like to share with you that our mission, our corporate mission, is to improve the lives of cancer patients, their families, and their caregivers. Next slide, please. So, and part of our mission is in Patient Alliances, we established a vision statement. And so that everything we do is in alignment with our vision. And that is to understand the patient journey from the diagnosis through treatment and incorporating that patient experience into the very fabric of our company. Next slide, please. So with that, about 4 years ago, it was 2017, I actually reached out to Stacy and Melinda with an idea, a concept for a patient advisory council, and developed this model. As I mentioned, being a microbiologist and coming from the clinical side to things, I felt it was very important to actually incorporate into our company the patient voice and the patient perspective early on in development. So we developed this model, and I'd like to just show you how we collaborate with the Cholangiocarcinoma Foundation. So they're our first patient advisory council, and Melinda is the lead for that. So a shout out to her and working with her on this concept and this model. And so since 2017, actually, we've been working together on this, and we started out in the phase 2, phase 3 phase. So when you think about the patients and being able to have that perspective and share that voice and bring that into the company to impact change, we've done that in a variety of ways. So the first was with trial design, as Melinda mentioned earlier, having our patient advisory council actually look at the inclusion and exclusion criteria. Is the study feasible for patients? So looking at the study visits and the labs, is it too much? For the endpoints, are these endpoints relevant? Are we missing something as far as patient-reported outcomes as well? In regards to the informed consent, a review of that as far as, what's the content and the wording? Is it clear? Is it missing something? Does it make sense? Also, the feedback from the council helps us with trial recruitment and support as far as getting the word out for respective patients, what is the trial, and helping to educate on what it is and who it most might be, potential for. And then also we work together and can develop a patient experience journey along the way. And then one of the examples of how we collaborated together was the feedback from the council had said, you're missing a patient-friendly mechanism of action. There isn't one in your informed consent. And we think that patients really will want to know how the drug works and have it in a term, not a scientific one, which was, like alphabet soup. So the council took this on as a special project and wrote a patient-friendly mechanism of action that we've used now throughout the program and can use it in other informed consents as well as materials. So once we moved then from phase 2 and phase 3, so our council looked at both the studies for phase 2 and phase 3 and provided feedback. When you think about getting ready to launch a therapy, there's a lot of things that we could use the patient and caregiver feedback for, identifying these unmet needs, resources, what would you like to see? What could we address? What should we provide for this new therapy? Should we provide a toolkit? And if we do, what should be in it? And being able to have that perspective brought into the company right away. And one of the things, in fact, in our most recent Patient Advisory Council for Cholangiocarcinoma, we talked about market access and brought together from our company the Department of Market Access to talk about, it's one thing to have a new therapy approved, but if the patients can't access it, or there's barriers or there's challenges, then that's not going to help the patients or their families. And so we want to be sure that we mitigate and know anything that we can do to help assist patients in getting access to the therapy. And then also our brand team during this stage, they're working on resources for the patients, the caregivers, even the nurses. And so being able to have our Patient Advisory Council review those and let us know for wording, content, anything that should or should not be included at that stage, getting ready to launch. And then actually after we launch with the commercialization, hopefully with a positive opinion from the FDA, of course, that we move into launching it. And so even when we try to mitigate risks or things that might be worked on together in advance, of course, we might find out after launch that there could be some potential barriers or issues with utilizing the product. So it's really important to stay in touch and to hear and find out, are there any challenges or problems, and try to address them right away. So also we can use concepts or ideas or endpoints, because during phase 2 and phase 3, as everyone knows, those are dictated for the most part, by regulatory bodies. And so there can be also new ideas to come about to say, hey, let's look at some research in these other different areas or some different endpoints and provide that feedback to our clinical folks. And then lastly, really, these can also, our council be, spokesperson for us for events or educational materials or videos, those sorts of things. At Taiho, from our Patient Alliances group, we try to do lunch and learns. So we feel that every employee of the company, whether you're in finance or throughout the different departments, they should really understand what cholangiocarcinoma is, who are the patients, be able to understand what Cholangiocarcinoma Foundation, the advocacy groups that are involved. So we bring in for lunch and learns as well. And our advisory council, we'd love to have them, be a part of it within our company. So as you can see with the model, we really utilize the patient and caregiver insights and that feedback throughout this whole development process and bring this into our company in a variety of different departments. Next slide, please. So how we do it, we really, as working with Melinda, to help identify patients and caregivers, we keep the group small. One of the things that we had decided early on was that instead of receiving a number of different inputs from each of the advisors individually, that it would be very beneficial to have them work together and have a consolidated version of feedback to the company. And that way it provides them also an opportunity to discuss amongst themselves as well. We bring that feedback into whatever department the project is, they review it and definitely try to incorporate everything that's possible. And then it's very important to also provide that feedback to the council, what we used, what we incorporated, how we did it. A recent example from our meeting was we had feedback from the informed consent that the language for the privacy was really difficult section. So our clinical team took that advice and are actually working with an outside counsel to condense that and make it better, of course, trying to comply with what's needed to be there, but do it in a better way, as well as feedback and questions around what's reimbursed for clinical trials. And we, from that, initiated also a program that we're trying to pilot in regards to trying to help patients with having almost like a little credit card and paying for expenses up front. So the feedback in summary from our Patient Advisory Council is invaluable to every department of our Taiho company. And we just want to say, thank you to the Cholangiocarcinoma Foundation and to Melinda. We're very grateful for this initiative, and we feel that it definitely benefits the development of these therapies, not only, of course, for the company, but for the patients and the caregivers and the families. So thank you for the opportunity to share this initiative with you today.
Thank you. So moving on, Susan, do you want to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about Servier?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Susan Stein, and I'm the Director of Patient Advocacy at Servier. Been working in this field with and for pharmaceutical companies for well over 20 years, specifically in the areas of oncology and rare disease. Next slide, please. So for those of you who've been following cholangiocarcinoma drug development, you may be aware that NewlyDiagnosed Pharmaceuticals has been developing a targeted therapy for those patients with an IDH1 mutation. However, in a press release from this past December, it was announced that Agios made the decision to sell its oncology portfolio to Servier Pharmaceuticals. So as of April 1st, the entire oncology portfolio was merged into the new organization. Next slide. So who is Servier Pharmaceuticals? Servier is located in Boston, Mass, and owned wholly by the Servier Group. And from our website, you can see we work tirelessly to create life-changing treatments that help our patients live longer and fuller lives. Servier Group was founded in 1954 by Dr. Jacques Servier outside of Paris, France. Servier is a privately held company governed by a nonprofit organization. And what the whole goal of that is to allow us to work long-term on patient-centered solutions without having to report to stockholders. So the goal is to put patients first ahead of finances. We have a strong international presence in 150 countries, and we employ over 22,000 people worldwide. Next slide, please. So you can see here our rationale for studying IDH1 mutations in cholangiocarcinoma. So IDH1 mutations occur in up to 20% of intrahepatic cholangiocarcinomas, and ivosidenib is a first-in-class oral small molecule inhibitor of mutant IDH1. And I think it's important to note that ivosidenib has already been approved in blood cancers for AML. So this would be, if approved, would be our second indication. And it's actually in the indication of AML is also known by Tibsovo, if you've heard of that. And the phase 3 Clarity study, which was our pivotal study, aimed to demonstrate the efficacy of ivosidenib versus placebo in patients with unresectable or metastatic mutant IDH1 cholangiocarcinoma. Next slide. So this is just the timeline of development of ivosidenib in cholangiocarcinoma. And you can see we started in 2014. And what I wanted to show you on here is in 2016, we brought in the cholangiocarcinoma. And we brought in the International Cholangiocarcinoma Research Network. And so our collaboration started early and has continued to date. And you can see on the right of the slide that we submitted our new drug application in February of this year, and were given priority review by the FDA. Next slide. So let's go into how collaboration with the cholangiocarcinoma and other patient groups advances patient care. Our work with cholangiocarcinoma has been invaluable. As Kimberly stated before, they're a fantastic organization, and everything that we do together advances care for patients. And I think at the end of the day, that's where we're all really hoping to get to, is how do we make the lives of cholangiocarcinoma patients a bit easier? So through CCF, we've learned so much from patients. And while we support a number of different initiatives, as you saw earlier, I'm going to talk today about two. Next slide. So the first one is how CCF helped us in our clinical trial development. At Servier, it's our philosophy to involve patient insights early and often in the drug development process. And you saw earlier, as Kimberly was saying, way back in early stages is where we like to start getting patient insight, because it helps us develop better trials that are easier for patients to be involved in. And CCF was an important advisor to the development of our clinical trial, our phase 3 clinical trial. And we made significant revisions due to their feedback. Next slide. So while we were developing this protocol for our phase 3 study called Clarity, which you can see on the slide, we had many meetings with CCF. And we wanted to make sure that we were truly thinking about patients as we designed this trial. So through a number of discussions, we presented the details of our protocol, which, as you can see, this is just the top line, and protocols are extremely complicated. In these meetings, CCF advised us in a few different areas where they thought we could really do better for patients. We listened and we followed their advice. Ultimately, we believe their guidance helped us get into the position we are today, which is having ivosidenib in review for a possible new indication for cholangiocarcinoma. Second, next slide, please. Next slide.
Did it not move forward?
No. Oh. Next one. Oh, here we go. Thank you. Maybe I missed it. It looks the same. So the second initiative that I wanted to talk about is the patient advisory board that we had last year in 2020 with cholangiocarcinoma patients. And again, thank you to Melinda for being a fantastic creator and helpful putting this together and moderating this with us. And we will have another one coming up this year as well in 2021. And we learned so much during this, and we continue to learn by talking to patients. So by talking to patients, we can capture patient experiences, their perspectives, and their needs and priorities. We want to know, what are the barriers to wellness? What are the issues facing caretakers? So we learn from patients at every turn. We learn the impact of their condition on their quality of life, more about their symptoms, which are the most debilitating or bothersome. What is the impact of the condition on their functioning? What are their experiences with their treatments? What input, you get input on what's most important to them and the relative importance of these issues and which disease impacts matter most to them. And some of the things that we learned in this advisory board were a lot about their unmet needs, their journey, and their clinical trial involvement. We also learned very specifically that there's a need for more education for healthcare professionals as well as patients about mutation testing, and how important that getting mutation testing is to patients, and how it can send you on a path to save a lot of time and headache. So by hearing all this information, we can develop better drug trials, better drugs, and we can create support services that matter to patients and their families. The only way we can do this is through collaboration with all these different organizations. CCF has been a fantastic collaborator, and they've helped us so much in understanding what patients are going through at each step of their journey. So thank you so much, and you'll hear more about collaboration from the speakers ahead.
Thank you very much. Jen, do you want to come on and talk about Incyte?
Yes, absolutely. Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to share with all of you today. I'm actually learning a lot along with all of you from my partners in industry, and always learn something from our engagement with the CCF. My name is Jen Antonacci, and I lead the public affairs team in North America at Incyte. And Isabel, if you want to move to the next slide, I will just quickly share a little bit about Incyte. Our company was founded back in 2002 by a team of world-class scientists with the idea of creating innovative medicines for patients. And that scientific pursuit of excellence with patients at our core remains the center of our organization today. So you can see we've grown up quite a bit. We now have a footprint in both in North America as well as overseas in Europe and Asia. And we have an expanding portfolio, 2,000 employees, all really focused on making the lives of people with serious diseases better. You can move to the next slide, Isabel. We've talked a lot about this today in various different ways. I think Melinda and Stacy also touched on this, but it's very important for all of us in industry to really think about partnerships in a broad way, and the relationships that we can develop with advocacy organizations really help us when we build them on shared values. And there's so many different things that we can bring into our companies and learn from patients as well as the advocates who engage with them, with all of you on a regular basis. And there's a lot on the slide that we can take away. And I think you're hearing some really great examples today. And we'll talk about some of them today. But I think the most important thing here is we're always looking for those opportunities where we can help each other, raise each other up, and do that in a mutually beneficial way. The next slide. Like many of the other industry partners today, Incyte has been very honored to partner with CCF in a number of different initiatives, starting with patient mapping early days as we were getting to understand the needs of cholangiocarcinoma patients, their caregivers, as well as healthcare professionals along the way. We also engaged to get feedback on the design of our trials. We also partnered with CCF on a patient survey. Many of you may have seen some of the outputs from that over the last year or so at the annual conference and a Facebook Live that we hosted back in October on Rare Cancer Day, which really helps contribute to the understanding of the overall impact of living with cholangiocarcinoma and treatments. And so hopefully contributes to all of our understanding of how we can approach things a little differently. We've also created a video in partnership with CCF and other partners as part of the Mutation Matters series. And we also partnered on a patient-facing brochure, which I'll talk about here in just a moment as one of the examples of our collaboration. So next slide, Isabel. And very simply, back in 2019, after working with CCF and understanding some of the unmet needs, we looked across and as Susan said, saw there's a need for patients to understand more, for healthcare professionals to understand more about the importance of clinical trials, as well as issues like biomarker testing and how important it is to do that early and really know what's happening and the rationale for it to be able to have more informed discussions as folks are going through their journey. And so very simply, we sought to create a resource that could be used by patients as well as healthcare professionals, really, to better understand some of those issues. And so partnered to create content that really covered basics of what cholangiocarcinoma is, what biomarker testing or molecular profiling is, different kinds of options, nothing specific about treatments, but the different kinds of therapies so that there could be a great understanding of what options might look like across the treatment journey. But also educating around clinical trials and the importance of those, which we know helps advance options for treatment. And then also just some really great tools around how to have an ideal conversation with a healthcare professional, because we know that's also a challenge when you're facing so much information and trying to make really difficult decisions. And of course, a glossary of terms. So we were very happy to have that partnership with CCF, and we're able to create that brochure as a source of information, and then get that into doctors' offices so that folks could access that resource at the time that they were getting a diagnosis or seeking to understand a little bit more. And that brochure is still used today. So with that, I'd love to turn it over to Anne.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Jen. Agree, learning so much, as I always do when we gather with our industry partners and connect with CCF. So really grateful for this opportunity. Hi, everyone. My name is Ann Lee, and I lead our patient advocacy efforts here at QED Therapeutics. A little bit about me. This is actually my first role working directly for industry. Prior to joining QED, I spent about 8 years as the director of programs for a multiple sclerosis advocacy organizations. And there I collaborated with the MS community and industry to develop health and wellness programs and resources for families with MS. So this has been a welcomed and natural shift for me to now be on the other side of the table, collaborating with our advocacy organizations and patient communities, hopefully to have a different and important type of impact on the patients that we're serving. But before I get started, I again needed to thank CCF for providing us with this opportunity. As Stacy had mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, it really does take everyone in the field, patients, providers, industry professionals, regulators, to push that needle. And it does take a village to inspire and to create impact and improve lives for patients. And so we are truly grateful for our partnership with CCF. We can go to the next slide and then to the next slide. Thanks, Isabel. So it's just a little bit about who we are. QED Therapeutics is an affiliate of BridgeBio Pharma, which basically just means that BridgeBio is our parent company. BridgeBio has 20 development programs that are each represented by an individual affiliate company. We are based in San Francisco, and BridgeBio overall develops potential treatments for genetically driven conditions. So here's a long list that we're all developing treatments for. Developing potential treatments for, with infigratinib, which is the medicine that QED is investigating. We were founded in January in 2018, and QED has about 90 employees. Next slide. So again, QED, we're solely focused on the development of medicines for FGFR-driven conditions, such as cholangiocarcinoma. And here's just a little visual of the studies that QED is currently working on in addition to cholangiocarcinoma. We have ongoing studies now in urothelial carcinoma, as well as achondroplasia, which is a type of skeletal dysplasia. Next slide. So one of QED's core and first values is to put patients first. And with this core value in our minds, we've recently formed a global partnership with Helsinn, which is a privately owned Swiss pharma company that was founded in 1976. And Helsinn has an impressive track record of bringing oncology therapies around the globe to patients. And essentially, we've decided to partner with them so that we can bring infigratinib, if it gets approved, to as many patients around the world as soon as possible. And so that really is a huge goal for us, and a North Star for us is to put patients first. Next slide. And as many of my industry partners here, QED is partnered with CCF on a number of different projects. Today, I'm going to share with you specifically on a collaboration that we did with CCF on a series of patient education videos. Next slide. So these videos that QED developed, it was based around the Mutation Matters campaign that CCF developed. And I think many of you, all of you, are familiar with this. Mutation Matters provides education to patients and healthcare providers on the importance of molecular profiling, molecular testing. And they did this by creating a really unique, animated, easy to understand, easy to digest video that's translated into, I think, 5 other languages aside from English. The video really underscores the importance of genetic testing and how testing can then lead to personalized treatment options, which really just means more options for patients. You know, at QED, we were so impressed by the power, the educational power of these videos and of Mutations Matter, that we wanted to continue on with this effort to provide more awareness and movement for the community. So we wanted to add on to the story that CCF started, so that the path doesn't just stop at biomarker testing, but also create more education around how to identify more treatment options. Next slide. So we reached out to CCF, said, hey, we want to create some more videos. And CCF introduced us to the artists, the medical writers who developed the Mutations Matters campaign. And we produced 3 videos to add on to the series. And these really are diving deeper on how targeted therapy works, the different types of gene mutations that are associated with cholangiocarcinoma. The first video is on targeted therapy. And then the second and third videos really focus specifically on FGFR alterations and targeted FGFR therapies. These, educational videos, they all enhance and drive home the reason why it's so important for patients to get tested, to get testing done when they're diagnosed. Next slide. So currently you can find these videos on CCF's YouTube channel. So plug here, if you're not already following CCF's YouTube channel, please do so after this webinar. And so thank you to CCF for sharing these through their YouTube channel, and QED is also looking forward to sharing these videos with the community through our website and through our social media channels. Our goal again is that these videos, along with the Mutations Matter campaign, just continue to provide awareness to patients, to the community, alike about molecular profiling. So again, visit the YouTube channel, check out the videos. Hopefully you'll be able to learn something new about the power of testing and targeted therapies. And again, we just thank you so much for the opportunity to share with you and look forward to any questions you might have after.
Terrific. Thank you so much. And last but certainly not least, Mary, do you want to talk about Zymeworks?
Absolutely, I do. Thank you very much. And I want to just put a plug in for the videos. I know when I first was introduced to the Cholangiocarcinoma Foundation and found the videos, I was so impressed by them. I'm not a scientist myself. I'm a corporate communications professional. My name is Mary Clem. I'm currently heading up corporate communications and advocacy relations for Zymeworks. I joined the company just last September. And I can attest that it is a very exciting time to be a part of this innovative and patient-focused company. If you'll go to the next slide, please, Isabel, I'll spend just a few minutes talking about Zymeworks. So Zymeworks is a clinical stage biotechnology company, which means we don't yet have any commercial products on the market, but we're hoping that that will change soon. And our lead indication actually for zanidatamab, which is our leading drug in the pipeline, is in biliary tract cancer, including cholangiocarcinoma. So Zymeworks was founded in 2003 by Ali Tehrani, who remains at the helm as our president and CEO at Zymeworks today. We currently have two programs in clinical development. Both are focused on cancer. And we have a preclinical pipeline that focuses on oncology and other serious diseases as well. Zymeworks is headquartered in Vancouver, Canada. That's where our global headquarters is and where the company was founded. And our US headquarters is in Seattle. It opened up just several years ago, and that's where I am now based. I just moved to Seattle a couple of weeks ago. We have more than 400 employees at Zymeworks. We are growing very rapidly. We grew the Zymeworks team last year by more than 35%, and we are on a similar, if not a faster growth trajectory this year. At Zymeworks, I think like most of us in industry, patients are a priority, and our mission verbatim is to enable patients to return home to their loved ones disease-free. We take that mission very seriously. Our lead therapy in development, as I mentioned, is zanidatamab, and it is designed to treat specific forms of cancer that have amplified levels of a protein called HER2. Approximately 20% of biliary tract cancers are HER2 amplified. We're currently enrolling a registration-enabling clinical trial for zanidatamab for patients with HER2 amplified biliary tract cancer, including cholangiocarcinoma. This study may enable submission of a biologics license application. That's like the drug application for a biologic medicine as soon as 2022 with the FDA, and this is for biliary tract cancer. The US FDA has granted breakthrough therapy and fast track and orphan drug designations. And what that means is that zanidatamab will be eligible for accelerated approval, priority review, and also rolling review, as well as really intensive collaboration with the FDA on an efficient drug development program. So there's potential that this therapy could come to market as soon as 2023. The breakthrough therapy designation from the FDA is based on data that was generated in biliary tract cancer patients treated in an initial phase 1 study. And in recognition of the potential of zanidatamab to provide a new approach for cancer treatments, it received the breakthrough therapy designation. That this milestone supports our strategy, and I think one that everyone in the cholangiocarcinoma community, particularly those who need treatments for HER2 targeted therapies, are eager, that it means that zanidatamab could be available for biliary tract cancer patients as quickly as possible. We're all certainly working toward that goal. Isabella, if you'll go to the next slide, please. So before I talk about the awesome newly diagnosed program that the Cholangiocarcinoma Foundation is developing with support from Zymeworks and others, I want to just take a few minutes to talk about Zymeworks' rationale for partnering with and sponsoring CCF's newly diagnosed program. So Zymeworks and the Cholangiocarcinoma Foundation, as well as all of the other industry partners that you're hearing from today, certainly share the goal of raising awareness of cholangiocarcinoma among all of our stakeholders, particularly patients, their caregivers, and their healthcare providers. So one critical message that the Cholangiocarcinoma Foundation and industry are striving to communicate to everyone impacted by cholangiocarcinoma is the importance of biomarker testing. So when a patient is first diagnosed with this rare and life-threatening cancer, it's really important that they be tested. They go through genetic testing. Molecular profiling can open the door to additional personalized treatment for those with cholangiocarcinoma, and this is true in other cancers as well. But getting the message out to newly diagnosed cholangiocarcinoma patients about the importance of biomarker testing is extremely important to Zymeworks because, as I mentioned, our investigational therapy zanidatamab is currently being studied in clinical trials, and it targets patients with previously treated HER2 gene-amplified biliary tract cancer. And a biomarker test is needed to determine if a patient's cancer is HER2 gene amplified. So you wouldn't take our therapy if you didn't have the HER2 amplified gene. So it's important for us to identify those patients. The Cholangiocarcinoma Foundation and industry also have a shared interest in raising awareness of clinical trials that are available to biliary tract cancer patients. And as I mentioned, Zymeworks is currently enrolling its registration-enabling zanidatamab clinical trial, which is extremely important because this trial could, we expect will result in the hopeful approval as soon as possible of our therapy, which is going to benefit those HER2 gene-amplified biliary tract cancer patients. And I should note that while there are other therapies that are approved for HER2 amplified cancers, there is nothing that has been approved specifically for biliary tract cancer for HER2 positive patients. So this is extremely important for all of us in the community. So let me talk a little bit about the CCF's newly diagnosed program. So the program is very comprehensive, and it's designed and will be delivered by the Cholangiocarcinoma Foundation to increase outreach to newly diagnosed patients and their caregivers, as well as healthcare providers who are treating those newly diagnosed patients. Now, the Cholangiocarcinoma Foundation has been doing excellent work in this arena since the time they were founded, but I think they really realize that they need to build their program to scale. And so they are launching a new program that will include these elements and more. There'll be a subscription email series for patients as well as their caregivers that will provide information, support, and hope in the treatment journey, both on a practical and an emotional perspective, I think. The video series will feature patients and long-term survivor stories that will really show the diversity of treatment options that are available. And it also includes a very important component, which is an educational outreach program for community oncologists who may be treating cholangiocarcinoma for the very first time. So if a patient comes to the Cholangiocarcinoma Foundation and is introduced to the newly diagnosed program, they have the option of inviting Cholangiocarcinoma Foundation to send information to their community oncologist, because in the local communities, I mean, it is a rare cancer, and it's certainly not uncommon for an oncologist to be treating a patient with this disease for the first time. So they can benefit from the information and the guidance and the experience that the Cholangiocarcinoma Foundation will be sharing through the newly diagnosed program. So Isabel, you can flip to the next slide, please. So I just want to talk about a few of the goals of the newly diagnosed program. Now, these were all developed by the Cholangiocarcinoma Foundation, but they're 100% supported by Zymeworks, and I would assume by all of the industry partners and the entire cholangiocarcinoma community. So the program is intended to, number one, increase the number of patients who receive biomarker testing. And again, that's extremely important to the community, to Zymeworks, and it should be to all newly diagnosed patients. A newly diagnosed patient, that should be the first thing they do, is if their doctor doesn't recommend it, they should ask for biomarker testing. And then to increase the number of patients aware and enrolling in clinical trials. There are multiple clinical trials available that you can find on clinicaltrial.org for biliary tract and cholangiocarcinoma patients. And The Cholangiocarcinoma Foundation also has information on their website about those trials that I think is put in a little bit more friendly language than you might find on the more technical clinicaltrials.org site. So that's a great resource that they have on the Cholangiocarcinoma Foundation website, and just raising awareness of those to the newly diagnosed patients as a potential option for them is extremely important. Another goal is to increase patient self-efficacy, or their ability and having the knowledge and understanding so that they can make well-informed decisions about their care and treatment. Fourth is to provide hope and support to newly diagnosed patients and their loved ones and caregivers. You feel very alone when you're diagnosed with this disease. I've talked with a number of cholangiocarcinoma patients. I've talked with Melinda, who's the head of advocacy relations. And I think this personal and emotional level is one that really is so true for patients, and that emotional support and that hope and that connectivity with the rest of the community, the opportunity to be introduced to other patients that have maybe gone through this. Extremely important element and goal in this program. Another goal is to increase awareness of the cholangiocarcinoma testing and treatment options among community oncologists. If an oncologist has never, they're spread quite thin in the community oncology hospitals, where they're treating a variety of cancers. And if they haven't had the hands-on experience of treating a cholangiocarcinoma patient, well, they can certainly benefit from information and guidance from the Cholangiocarcinoma Foundation. And then finally, I would say enabling a major expansion of the Cholangiocarcinoma Foundation's capacity to inform and engage patients. This is something they've been doing since they formed 15 years ago. And it's something that they've been doing well. But with the introduction of this program, it's really enabling them to scale up. And I know the Cholangiocarcinoma Foundation's goal is to ensure that they are able to reach every single newly diagnosed patient with this disease. And that's it for my bit. Thank you so much for listening. And I want to echo what my other industry colleagues have said about the value of our partnership with the Cholangiocarcinoma Foundation. This is an outstanding organization, so very well organized. They think of everything. And the Cholangiocarcinoma Foundation is extremely fortunate to have this foundation working on your behalf. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I will hand it over really briefly here to Melinda. Do you want to just maybe wrap up a little bit and then see if there's any discussion or questions?
Yes, so I'll invite anyone to, if they have any questions, to put them in the chat and we can answer them. We have about 8 minutes left that we can get to any questions that you have, so feel free to type them in the chat. And I just want to say what a privilege and an honor it is to work with all of you, and how grateful as a patient I am, and I know our community is, that we have industry partners that are working in the cholangiocarcinoma space and providing options for our patients, options to treatments, and advancing the research so that we can have longer lives and be with our families. So it's super important, and we're very much appreciative of every one of our partnerships. Yeah, so we'll wait for some questions. Is there anything else you want to discuss, Isabel?
I don't think so. I think it's just important to reiterate that the purpose of these partnerships is to serve patients ultimately. And so, I mean, we really wanted to bring everyone together today to talk about this so that we can be transparent about the partnerships and the collaborations that we have, and to show why this is so important to our patient community.
And emphasize that it is important for patients to bring their voice to the table and share their experiences so that we can, have feedback and and our partners can make changes based on what we say and what our needs are. And that is truly the best part of my job, is to see in our feedback and our voice being heard, and then that feedback being implemented on by you. So again, I appreciate all the work that you do based on what we say. And I don't see anyone who has any questions, but if we get questions, I will be sure to pass them on to all of you. And thank you guys for your time and your energy and all your support to the Cholangiocarcinoma Foundation.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you so much.
For being such a strong partner.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Take care. Have a wonderful week. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Everyone.
Bye.
Bye.